Hey guys, I'm sitting here in the hotel that I'm at, Best Western in Palmdale, California, probably about 8 miles from Lancaster, a couple hours from LA, but northeast. But anyway, we are in the desert, and just had an opportunity this morning. I'm sitting on my bed and I'm praying, and lo and behold, I think it was a desert spider crawling across the floor. This thing was huge, and of course, I took it out. It was awesome. And then I got on the floor and I started waiting on God, and I was thinking to myself, maybe one will come over and crawl up on me. Wouldn't that be awesome? I love it. But anyway, hey, I wanted to give you a little update of what took place last night. It was great. I was in the prayer time, and I just felt like I needed to get up and go in the sanctuary to get ready for the service, and because it was before the prayer time ended. I go in, and I actually end up sitting down next to Jordan Rubin. If you guys know him, he's kind of a well-known author and writes a lot on health and nutrition. I do want to say he was a Florida State University grad. Awesome. He actually was a part of a church I was a part of back in the 90s, and but he got sick and he had to drop off, and then I came in, and we were friends with some of the same people. But anyway, good guy. I've had a chance to meet him before. We ended up talking. He was here with his wife. He has his assistant watching their 5 kids in a hotel room while him and his wife are here, and we talked for a while, and that was kind of neat. Just shared a little bit about what's coming to our nation, and anyway, I'm going to connect with him again. Last night I didn't want to really hand out anything to anybody. I just wanted to kind of be there for the first night after getting up at 2:45 and then realizing when I got to the airport that I could have went another hour because I was going to gain an hour by going to Chicago. I forgot about that. So I got to the airport 3 hours earlier than what I needed. But praise Jesus, it was an awesome day. Great testimony in flight. I'll have to share that at a different time. But I want to go over what was communicated last night. Speaker's name was Neville Johnson from Australia, and he's very burdened for our nation and what's coming. These speakers all believe that we're getting ready to move into the end times, and so there's going to be things that will be experienced throughout the world. But they do talk to our nation about what's coming to our nation, and Neville Johnson would say, in reality, probably what we're going to go through is going to be a lot worse than other nations. So God, yet at the same point, the outcome is God's going to have a nation that returns to Him through the shaking and the purifying. We will return to the Lord, and so we've got a lot of work of pursuing God and getting our hearts ready to be able to get people ready. And I hope that that's what these messages that I put up on here and all the things that Dave's going to be sending out through the blog, and we keep speaking into your life, guys. You will take it and then share that with others, and I know many of you are, and I appreciate that, and Dave appreciates that as well too. Anyway, so this is what he said. He's like, this is somebody who meets with the Lord. Like, he's had encounters with God in ways that we can't imagine, and he said this past year was one of the hardest years of his life. He just had a lot of health issues, but he's like, I grew with the Lord and I had more encounters with the Lord than I've ever had. And so it was a really powerful year through the hardship and the challenges. And they said the one thing, and he's like, I was going to talk on other things, but he's like, the Lord told me I was to speak on this, and it was pretty much keeping the main thing the main thing. And then he went into talking what that was, and he said, we must get the right foundation into the new believers that will come. We're not going to have the time because there's going to be so many, and it's going to be overwhelming. There are going to be so many that press into the kingdom. So we must teach them the main thing, the main thing. And he also said, this year will be when things turn. So we're going to see some things take place. That's what he's saying. That's what he got from the Lord. So he said, what's the main thing? We need to be ready for this. He said to be conformed to the image of God, to have the character. And he talked about the Beatitudes. We need to go into the Beatitudes there in Matthew 5 and know God with this type of character, because this is part of our inheritance. If we, by faith, are peacemakers, then we get the reward of being the peacemaker. If we're meek, then we'll inherit the earth. And there's such deep spiritual truths to what that really means. But he talked about character, humility. He's like, humility is what opens the door to all this other stuff. You got to have humility. You got to get low. Being meek, being a peacemaker, loving people. And I know, the Lord's really put on Dave's heart for a while now about love. And we're hearing from the Lord. It's all encouraging things. We're on the right track. Now, I don't remember if he communicated this about our nation or if this was for the world, but I do think it might have been for our nation. But he talked about millions will die. Because again, he's speaking to our nation. But he said millions will die with everything that's going to happen. It's going to be hard. He also brought up Isaiah 54. I don't remember what he said, but I want to go back and read that. I haven't had a chance yet. But he said some big cities will be abandoned and be desolate. People will just leave these places because they're going to be war zones, crazy zones. This was something that I thought was really profound. He said, have the little children pray for healing. God will use kids to empty insane asylums. I thought to myself, wow. And what he talked about is kids are innocent. They have a childlike faith. They haven't gone through life and been programmed to think of unbelief and to think that God doesn't do this and doesn't do that. So they just, oh, okay, it's God, I'll do it. And so there's faith there. And they haven't been brainwashed to not believe in who God is. So God will use kids to empty insane asylums. I'm like, man, that's awesome. So let's get around kids, but let's not keep them from doing what God wants to do. And what did Jesus say when they're like, oh, they were trying to push the kids away? He's like, don't push the kids away. This is what the kingdom is. I thought it was awesome. Anyway, also, I thought this was interesting. He says, when we're walking by faith and love and being having more of God in us, creation will partner with us. And I thought that was interesting. And we see that. Think about Moses when the Red Sea parted. Why did the water do that? Well, you know what? Because God did it, but it was also, there was something in Moses, his faith in who God was. What about the ravens bringing food to Elijah? So there's different examples in the scriptures, and he didn't share those. It just made me think of that. No matter what happens, God is in control. Don't ever forget that. Whatever happens, God is in control, and we must go through these things by faith. Now, just as Jesus came to reveal the Father, we are here to reveal what Jesus is like. And when we walk that out by faith, God will bring the signs and the wonders. They'll fall and they'll come around us, and he'll do great exploits through us. He also said an earthquake is coming that will destroy Hollywood. It's going to hit LA, and it's going to be, he's going, because Hollywood has perverted the world, and God's going to deal with that and judge it. And through that, he's going to purify. None of this stuff is because he's mean. It's because of his goodness. God has to deal with evil, and he will bring about good for his purposes. He also said 2016 or the upcoming year. Sometimes I forget exactly what he said. He said will be the year, because we're almost coming to the end of 2016. So I think he's talking about like in the next upcoming year, will be the year of the rising up of Josephs. We just talked about that as our small group the other night, that we would get ready and be in a position to take care of people. I just challenge every Forerunner community, sit down and think about what you have, your skills, your talents, your gifts, your resources, and what everybody can do, bringing together what you have to form that community to care for people. Start thinking on those things. We want to be like that Joseph, and it's going to be younger people too as well. We will see great power and authority in our speech. And we're going to see great things happen through that, but we must be clean. We must be pure. We've got to live that holy life and embrace God. God's going to remove false prophets. There's going to be a cleansing of his church and of many pastors, those who preach that. He just talked about the prosperity gospel, and he actually talked about the Pentecostals. But let's throw in hyper grace. Let's throw in cessationism, all those different false messages that come through that have hindered God and have held his people in prisons. God's going to purify his church and grow us up. So we want to preach good messages, stuff that comes from the scriptures. And remember, God's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's done a lot of these things already. He'll do them again. Yeah, so God's going to purge the church, and he's going to there's going to be a radical dedication that must be taught to the next generation. I believe God's going to use young people in a way that we can't imagine. We've got to be ready to train them. That means by faith, we go from faith to faith and from glory to glory, and God uses us to build into them. We need to be ready. We need need to know it in our own hearts. That's what I love about this. That's why I'm getting up at 3 and spending those 5 hours with the Lord. Get up early, whatever time it is. Spend an hour, 2 hours. Let's not make excuses anymore. Get committed and find it. Lead your families to do it. Put the TV set aside. We don't have time for entertainment. We've got time for Jesus. Let him be our entertainment. That's what I'm saying. The new wave is coming, and some young people will die. They're going to be martyred. It's going to be hard to see. Young people will be taken home. This is what he said. This will help thousands come to the kingdom. It will be a seed. And God does that. With the blood of the martyrs, through that, salvations come. We're going to see people are going to die. They're going to die for their faith. The harvest of young people is coming in, but the seed must be sown. And then he also talked about how he's taking communion every day. And so that's something we must think about too. Maybe we want to do communion or increase that. So he talked about earthquakes coming. Foreign troops will come on our soil here in the U.S. When that happens, we don't know, but it'll happen. He also prayed for the elect, that they'll rise up and God will do great things. So it was really awesome. Today I'm really going to start reaching out. You know, I was just so tired after the trip yesterday. I think my eyes were like all bloodshot and red. I was beat when I got home, and I just jumped into bed and boom, went right to sleep. But anyway, excited, good things. So guys, I'm going to keep giving updates and reports on what's going on to build you guys up and encourage you. Let's go for this thing together in faith. I was reading Hebrews 11 today, that by faith, it talked about how all these heroes in the hall of faith went after God with their whole hearts, and God commended them. He rewarded them for their faith and did great things. And they didn't see all of those rewards. A lot of those will be when we die, but there are rewards that we will get right now. And he'll build us up and we'll get more of him and more of him. Go for him. Do whatever you got to do. Pursue him with every ounce. Say to God, I want my whole heart, every nook and cranny to be filled with you so that you give me a deposit that can be given to others to influence them. All right? Lord bless you. Bye-bye.